All right, welcome back everyone to the deep dive. We've got a really thought-provoking paper to unpack today. So let's just dive right in. The title is a mouthful.
Yeah.
Controllable Complementarity. Subjective Preferences in Human AI Collaboration.
I like it.
Now, we're seeing AI getting really good at so many things.
Yeah.
Really complex tasks. But this paper asks a question that I think is super relevant as AI gets more and more integrated into our lives.
Right.
What actually makes a good AI teammate? And I don't just mean one that helps you get the best results.
Yeah, definitely. It's more than just pure performance, right?
Yeah.
We have to consider the human side of things, the subjective experience of working with AI.
You know, for a long time, the focus in AI research has been on
Metrics.
benchmarks,
Yeah.
better scores, faster processing, all those quantifiable things. But what about how we feel about working with AI?
Totally. It's like, would you rather work with a colleague, a human colleague who's super brilliant, but kind of does their own thing, doesn't really listen to your input,
Right.
or someone who maybe isn't quite as objectively skilled, but is really open to your suggestions, is easy to collaborate with?
And maybe even more importantly, makes you feel good about the process, right? Like you're both contributing.
Exactly. I think that's a key point. And this paper really digs into this idea that human AI teams are becoming more and more common.
Oh yeah, across every field it seems.
Everywhere, yeah. And we're not just using AI as a tool anymore.
It's more of a partner now,
Yeah, it's a partner, a collaborator.
a teammate even.
Then
And traditionally, research has measured the success of these teams by looking at whether the AI plus the human is better than either one alone.
yeah, the whole idea of complementarity, right? Like, do they complement each other's skills to achieve something greater than the sum of their parts?
But this paper is saying, hold on, there's more to it than that. True complementarity also has to consider the human's perspective, how they feel about working with the AI.
Exactly. It's about the journey, not just the destination.
Right. I like that. So it's not just about getting to the best outcome, it's about how you get there.
Exactly.
And whether the human feels like a valued part of the team.
Absolutely. And this paper really tries to quantify that subjective experience.
Yeah, because I think a lot of us intuitively know we care about these things. But actually measuring them, putting them into a research context is really challenging.
And this is especially important as AI keeps getting better and better. In some areas, AI is already surpassing human abilities. So the question becomes, when we choose to collaborate with AI, especially when the stakes aren't super high, these subjective factors, these preferences, could be what makes or breaks the whole collaboration.
It's not about whether the AI can do the task. It's about whether we want to work with it to do the task.
Totally. And this paper really focuses on one key subjective element: control. Our desire to have some influence over how our AI partners behave.
Control, yeah. That's something I think most people would agree is important in any kind of team setting.
Absolutely.
You want to feel like you have some agency.
Right. And even if it's not full control, just having some input, some way to influence the process can make a huge difference.
Now, the authors of this paper point out that while previous research has kind of acknowledged this desire for control over AI teammates,
Right.
it hasn't really been a central focus in the field.
Not really, no.
There's not a lot of work on how to actually give humans this control in a meaningful way.
And that's a gap they really try to address in this work.
So they developed this really interesting method called behavior shaping. DS for short.
Catchy, right.
Yeah, I like it. It's like training an AI, but with a specific focus on influencing its tendencies.
It's like, we're not just throwing a bunch of data at the AI and hoping it figures everything out on its own.
Right.
We're actually trying to guide it towards certain types of behavior.
And this is all done through reinforcement learning, which I think is worth explaining a little bit for our listeners who may not be familiar with it.
Yeah, good point.
So in reinforcement learning, you have an agent, in this case the AI, that interacts with an environment.
Right, like think of a video game, for example.
Exactly.
The AI is controlling a character in the game.
And the AI takes actions, and based on those actions, it receives rewards or penalties.
It's like a trial and error process, right? The AI learns over time what actions lead to good outcomes, things that get rewarded, and what actions to avoid.
And what behavior shaping does is it allows the researchers, or in some cases the human teammate, to essentially design additional rewards that encourage specific behaviors.
So we can say, hey, AI, we really like it when you do this, and we give it a little bonus.
Or We'd rather you didn't do that. Maybe we give it a little nudge in the other direction.
And by tweaking these reward signals, we can shape the AI's behavior in a way that's more aligned with what humans want.
And that's the core of this paper, isn't it? They used behavior shaping in this really fun collaborative cooking game called Overcooked AI.
Oh, yeah. Overcooked. It's a great testbed for human AI collaboration.
It's a simple game, but it requires a lot of coordination and communication to be successful. You've got two chefs.
Right.
They need to work together to prepare orders, cook dishes, plate them, deliver them.
It gets chaotic pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah, especially as the orders get more complex and the kitchen layout gets more challenging.
Yeah, it really puts your teamwork skills to the test.
And it's a perfect environment to study these subjective preferences because it's not a life or death situation.
What game?
Yeah, so it's low stakes. People can relax a bit and focus more on how they feel about working with the AI rather than just frantically trying to win at all costs.
Right, and that's what makes their findings so interesting. So in their first experiment, they wanted to test whether this behavior shaping technique could actually create AI agents that were better partners for humans, even when the human wasn't actively controlling the AI's behavior.
So they trained these BS agents, these behavior shaping agents, and they compared them to AI that was trained using a standard self-play method.
Which is basically the AI learning to play by playing against itself.
Right, which is a really common approach in reinforcement learning. You let the AI basically figure out the best strategy through trial and error against a copy of itself.
It's like practicing against a mirror.
Yeah. But in this case, they wanted to see if specifically training for collaboration, even without real-time control, would make a difference.
And it did. I mean, the results were pretty striking.
They were. Across most of the game scenarios, the human AI teams that had the BS agent, the behavior shaping agent, as their partner actually achieved higher scores.
Which is interesting in itself, right? Because you're not even using the control aspect in this experiment.
Right. So even without actively directing the AI's behavior, just the fact that it was trained with this behavior shaping method seems to have made it a more effective collaborator.
Yeah, like it learned something about how to work well with humans just from the training process itself.
It's not just the objective performance.
Yeah.
The human players actually reported that they preferred working with the BS partner compared to the self-play partner.
So not only were they scoring better, but the humans also enjoyed the experience more.
Exactly. And that really speaks to this idea of complementarity beyond just pure performance.
Absolutely. However, there was this one interesting exception.
Right. There was one game setup where the BS agent didn't really show an advantage.
Yeah, they called it the forced coordination layout. And what they found was that the way they had set up the behavior shaping rewards, it mainly affected the actions of one of the AI chefs.
And in that particular layout, that chef's role wasn't as critical to the overall team success.
Like they were kind of in a supporting role in that scenario.
Yeah. So even though the AI was maybe behaving differently,
right,
it didn't really have a big impact on the team's performance or how the human perceived the collaboration.
And I think that highlights something really important.
What's that?
It's not just about shaping any behaviors, it's about shaping the right ones.
You have to think carefully about what behaviors are going to be most impactful in a given task or environment.
Exactly. And I think that's a good segue to their second experiment, because in the second experiment, they really zeroed in on this idea of controllability.
Right. They wanted to see what happens when humans have explicit control over how the AI behaves. So they had people play the cooking game with 3 different versions of the same underlying BS agent.
Yeah, so same AI, but different levels of control.
Exactly.
So with one version, the human player could actually go in and adjust the AI's behavioral tendencies.
Like they could literally say, okay, AI, I want you to focus more on delivering dishes.
Right, or I need you to prioritize chopping onions, things like that.
And they could change these settings before each round of the game.
So it's like they're giving the AI instructions.
Right. And then with another version of the agent, the behaviors were still set, but they were randomized.
Right.
So the human could see what the AI was going to prioritize.
Like maybe it would be focused on chopping onions, or maybe it would be focused on plating, but the human couldn't change it.
Right. It was just kind of like, this is what the AI is going to do, deal with it.
Yeah.
And then the third version, the behaviors were also randomized, but they were hidden from the human player.
So the human had no idea what the AI was going to prioritize.
It was a total mystery.
Yeah, like playing with a wild card.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they wanted to see how these different levels of control or lack of control impacted the human player's experience.
And I think you're going to love this.
Tell me.
The results were so clear. The people who got to play with the AI that they could control, they reported much higher levels of everything positive.
Like
With
what? Predictability?
Okay, so they felt like they could better anticipate what the AI was going to do.
Yeah, which makes sense, right?
Yeah.
They were the ones setting the instructions.
But also effectiveness. They felt like they were a more effective team.
Interesting.
And maybe most importantly, they reported enjoying the experience way more.
That's huge.
It is. And think about this. Their objective performance, how many dishes they actually cooked, it was pretty similar across all three conditions.
So it wasn't like the controllable AI was making them objectively better at the game.
Right. But just that feeling of having some influence over their partner made the whole experience much more enjoyable and made them feel like they were working with the AI, not just alongside it.
I think that's such a crucial point.
Yeah.
It's not always about the outcome.
No,
It's about the process.
it's about the journey.
Exactly. And it really highlights the importance of designing AI systems that give humans this sense of agency, this feeling of control.
And unsurprisingly, when given the choice, most people, after trying all three conditions, they said, yeah, I want the controllable AI.
I mean, who wouldn't?
It's like wanting to be in the driver's seat, even if you're ultimately going to the same destination.
Makes perfect sense. Now, they also looked at what happened when the AI didn't do exactly what the human told it to do.
Right, because that's a really interesting scenario.
Like, what if the AI decided it knew better
Yeah, or maybe there was some unforeseen circumstance.
and it had to deviate from the plan?
And what they found is that these deviations, even when they didn't necessarily hurt the team's overall performance, they actually had a negative impact on the human's perception of the AI.
Like it made them trust the AI less.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I told you to do this. Why are you doing that?
Even if it turned out okay in the end.
Yeah, even if the outcome was fine. And this was especially true when it was the controllable AI.
So the AI that the human had specifically given instructions to.
Right. It's like that feeling of betrayal is even stronger when you feel like you had a say in the first place.
It really highlights how important predictability and following instructions is.
Especially when it comes to building trust and a positive working relationship with AI.
It's almost like the AI needs to be transparent about why it's deviating.
Yeah, communication is key.
Maybe even ask permission. Like, hey, I know you told me to do this, but I think this other thing might be better. What do you think?
I think that's a great area for future research, actually.
Yeah, how to design AI systems that can effectively communicate these kinds of deviations and maintain trust with their human partners.
Because you don't want to completely take away the AI's autonomy.
Right.
There might be times when it genuinely does know better.
Or it needs to react quickly to something the human isn't aware of.
Exactly. So it's about finding that balance between giving humans control and allowing the AI to exercise its own intelligence.
Now, you mentioned something earlier that I thought was really interesting.
What's that?
You said they found evidence that people might use the controls not just to try to maximize their score in the game,
Oh, yeah.
but to make the AI's behavior more predictable.
Right. So it wasn't always about the most efficient strategy. Sometimes it was about creating a clearer sense of what the AI was going to do.
So even if it meant maybe sacrificing a few points,
Yeah, they would set the controls in a way that made the AI's behavior more consistent, more predictable.
which I think goes back to this idea of trust and feeling comfortable working with the AI.
Absolutely. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I know what to expect from you, AI, and now we can work together effectively.
So the big takeaway from all this is that subjective preferences, things like control and predictability, are super important when we're talking about human AI collaboration.
It's not just about performance, it's about the experience.
And this behavior shaping method seems like a really promising way to develop AI that takes those preferences into account.
Yeah, it's a cool tool. And this research really builds on decades of work in human-computer interaction.
Right. Like we've always been fascinated by the idea of computers as more than just tools, as partners, as collaborators.
And this desire for control over AI systems, it's not new.
No. Think about some of those early chess playing AIs.
Yeah.
People were already thinking about, okay, how can I adjust the AI strategy?
How can I guide it?
How can I make it play more like me?
Right. And then as AI got more sophisticated, we saw this focus on achieving superhuman performance, like in Go or Dota 2.
Where the AI is basically untouchable.
Yeah, it's playing at a level that humans can't even comprehend.
But now I think we're seeing a shift back towards the human in the loop.
We're realizing that even if AI can do things better than us, that doesn't mean we want to be completely left out of the process.
We still want to be involved. We still want to have some say.
And that's where this idea of controllable complementarity comes in.
It's about designing AI that's not just smart,
No.
but also a good teammate, a collaborator that we feel comfortable working with.
A partner that respects our preferences.
Exactly. And I think this research is a really important step in that direction.
Definitely.
So to sum it all up in nice, clear bullet points.
Okay, I like bullet points.
When humans and AI work together, it's not just about getting the best possible result. The process matters too.
The journey is just as important as the destination.
Exactly. Giving humans even simple ways to influence AI behavior can dramatically improve their perception of the AI as a teammate.
It makes it feel more like a collaboration, less like the AI is just doing its own thing.
And predictability is key for a good AI partner. And control can be a really effective way to achieve that predictability.
Because when you know what to expect, you can plan accordingly, you can work together more smoothly.
But, and this is a big but, if the AI ignores what we explicitly tell it to do, even if it thinks it's doing it for our own good.
Even if it's trying to get a better score or something,
Right.
it can actually back.
I can erode trust.
Yeah.
Make us feel less satisfied with the collaboration.
So the AI needs to be transparent. It needs to communicate its intentions.
And ideally, give us the option to override its decisions if we really feel strongly about it.
Right, like a safety switch or something.
Yeah. And finally, this behavior shaping method.
BS.
Yes. It offers a really concrete way to start creating AI that takes these subjective preferences into account.
It's a way to build AI that's not just focused on performance, but also on being a good teammate.
And that's really exciting, I think, because it opens up a whole new avenue for research and development in AI.
It's not just about making AI smarter, it's about making it work better with us.
So let's move into our novel notions segment.
All right, time for some speculation.
Exactly. We've talked a lot about this research, but what kind of interesting follow-up questions or completely new ideas does it spark for you?
Well, one thing that immediately comes to mind is this idea of exploring different types of control.
Okay, so we talked about how this paper used pretty high-level behavioral directives.
Right, like encourage this or discourage that.
But what if we gave humans more fine-grained control?
Yeah, like what if you could actually adjust the AI's individual actions in more detail?
Instead of just setting a general goal,
Exactly.
you could tweak how the AI approaches the task at a much lower level.
So in that cooking game, maybe you could adjust how the AI moves around the kitchen
Oh, interesting.
or how quickly it chocks vegetables.
Like you're controlling the joystick.
Yeah, it's like you're giving it more specific instructions on how to execute the task.
And would that make people feel even more in control?
That's the question, right? Would it be too much control? Would it be overwhelming?
Or would it be empowering?
Exactly. And I think it would be really fascinating to study how different types of control impact the human's subjective experience and also the team's overall performance.
Yeah, like maybe for some tasks, having fine-grained control is super beneficial.
Right.
But for others, it's just distracting.
It's too much cognitive load.
Exactly. And I think another really interesting direction would be to look at different ways to communicate those deviations we were talking about.
Oh, yeah, when the AI doesn't do what the human told it to.
What if the AI could explain itself?
Right, like, hey, I know you said to do this, but I did that because...
And it could give a justification.
Yeah, reason.
Maybe even highlight potential negative consequences of following the human's instructions too rigidly.
If I had done what you said, this bad thing would have happened.
Right, and I think that could go a long way in maintaining trust and a positive working relationship.
Absolutely. Because even if you don't agree with the AI's decision, at least you understand why it made that decision.
And that makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's about transparency and communication.
And that ties in nicely with all the work on explainable AI.
AI,
Yeah.
where we're trying to make AI's decision-making processes more understandable to humans.
And I think these ideas of controllability and explainability are really converging.
They are.
Because ultimately, it's about creating AI that we not only trust to do its job well,
Right.
but that we also feel comfortable working with.
Partners, not just tools.
Exactly. All right, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah, that was a deep dive for sure.
It was. So to our listeners, if you're interested in learning more about this research,
And you should be.
we've got a link to the full paper in the episode description.
Go check it out.
And I want to leave you with a final thought.
Okay, hit me with it.
As AI continues to evolve and we develop these increasingly sophisticated systems, how will the choices we make about controllability and explainability shape the future of our relationships with these digital collaborators?
That's a big one.
It is. And I don't think there's an easy answer.
No, but it's definitely something worth thinking about.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
It's always a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring.